Hello and welcome to the Oddschecker Sprint Cup preview podcast and video. I'm your host, George Elek, and I'm joined by Oddschecker's stable star tipster, Andy Holding. Every day, Andy's tips on our site and on the app, the very best tipster around in our point of view. And it's a pleasure to be joined by you today, Andy. How have you been getting on over the last couple of weeks since we last spoke?
Yeah, not bad. Last few days, as we said, since the weather's turned, not so good. I can't really blame it, I suppose, because I mean, you know what you're dealing with before you put your tips out. Just haven't had the rub of the green since Monday, really. But last week was not too bad. August on the whole, I'd probably give myself a 6.5, 7 out of 10 at best. I think I'm at about 20 odd points, which is not bad, but nothing like the heady heights of July when I think we were about 60 points up. I had a very good July, but yeah, it's always tricky this time of year. With the ground changing, horses perhaps who've had hard runs, are they going to keep running into their numbers that I get, when I download the sheets? That's always the main problem, because you have to go, or you have to trust your numbers, as it were. And sometimes the horses, because they've had one or two hard runs, it's knowing when they've gone over the top or not, which is not as easy as it suggests.
Well, Andy, we're recording this at about 11 o'clock, just after 11 o'clock on Thursday morning. And you say you haven't had a great week. If I know anything, Andy, it's that if you've had a barren couple of days, that means it's about to rain winners. So fingers crossed, we're going to uncover some over the weekend here. Before we get into the racing, I'm just going to point the listeners and the viewers in the direction of the Oddschecker app. The very best place for the best bookie offers, the best free bets, the very best prices, and of course, the best tipsters. Andy included there. The place to find Andy's tips first thing in the morning when you get up, before you have your cornflakes, is the Oddschecker app, where you can find his tips and his write-ups there as well. For this podcast, as I said, we're recording just after 11 on Thursday, which makes it a little bit awkward in terms of previewing Saturday's racing, but that's what we're going to try and do. The 48-hour decks are just about in, but the markets are changing as we speak. So please bear with us and forgive us if a couple of these prices are a little bit, just a little bit out of date. But we're going to start, of course, with the Sprint Cup. We're then going to talk about Enable and her return to the track at Kempton on Saturday. Then we're going to cover a couple of the other races at Haydock in the afternoon, before maybe, if we have time, flag up a couple of bets for Andy tomorrow on Friday. But the Sprint Cup, it is first, and the favourite is Dream of Dreams at 3-1, ahead of Hello Youmzain at 7-2. Lope Fernandez 6-1 alongside Golden Horde, Art Power 8-1, and Tab Deed 10-1, 16-1 bar. Andy, always a tricky one to pick the winner of here. Do you think the market's got it right at the moment?
It hasn't current form, yeah, there's no doubt about it. That Dream of Dreams' victory at Newbury, so spectacular was it, that it's entitled him to a huge amount of respect. But let's not beat about the bush. He got well beat in this race last year. Just whether Dream of Dreams has improved in the interim period. I mean, it's hard to believe a horse has improved that dramatically from 5 to 6. They're going to improve. They usually do from 3 to 4. When they're young, as they get older, they sort of plateau a bit. So it all depends which Dream of Dreams turns up. The Newbury horse, he's definitely the right favourite. But last year's Dream of Dreams against Hello Youmzain, and pretty much similar types of horses like the Tin Man, etc., then you'd have to say that Hello Youmzain is arguably the value of the two as it stands. Let's face it, Hello Youmzain hasn't done a huge amount wrong so far this season. His victory at Ascot over Dream of Dreams, stands the test. The ground was probably a little bit too lively for him in the July Cup, albeit he ran quite well and he got beat 4 lengths by Oxted. And then he was unlucky to come up against such a quality horse in Space Blues in the Maurice de Geese last time, over 6.5 at Deauville. But those runs in Group 1 level prove that he's very much the standard bearer. And as it stands as well, the ground is very much in his ballpark. It's soft, heavy in places as we speak on Thursday. There are showers forecast again for the next few days, so it's not likely to dry out too much. So it's very much going to be in his ballpark. He's got a decent draw towards the near side, so if he wants to attack and ride from the front like he did last year, he's certainly got the sort of platform to do that. And he's very much been trained for the race. So it's all about prices with me, really. I certainly am a massive respect to Dreamer of Dreams on that Newbury run, but on the run last year, his defeat of Dream of Dreams at Ascot and his overall profile this season at the prices Hello Youmzain makes loads of appeal.
So Hello Youmzain 7-2, seemingly the selection out of the top two in the market. Any others we can make cases for at bigger prices, Andy, or is it a case of just focusing on who's going to be the stronger out of those two?
Well, I mean, we can mention a few others that bring, good solid form to the table and certainly worthy of a look at big prices. Obviously, Golden Horde, winner at Ascot, who I put up that day when he won the Golden Jubilee. Not quite so good on his last two runs, but he's obviously a big player when he brings his best performances to the table. One at a huge price as well, around about 25-1, I think you quoted. Archer's Dream from the informed James Fanshawe stable. Obviously, James has got the Tin Man in there, who's been a stable stalwart for many years, but I do think this one's an able replacement. He's 4 years younger. He only won a smaller race compared to what this lot have been running against. He beat Snazzy Jazzy last time out in the conditions race, but his time figures are good, and I like the way he's progressing, and he will love the conditions. He's by Dream Ahead, of course, a sire who absolutely revelled in heavy ground. I think Dream Ahead, remember him way back in the day. He won his debut at Nottingham by 8 lengths on heavy ground, so he's very much imparted that trait onto his offspring. So I do think him with Tom Marquand on board could run well at a very, very big price, but I think Hello Youmzain is very much the one, certainly to beat in my eyes anyway.
Hello Youmzain, the one to beat at 7-2. Archer's Dream 33-1 with Paddy Power at the moment. So if you're looking for one of the big priced chance with Tom Marquand on board, 33-1 seems a very fair price indeed. We'll move on now, and we'll move away from Haydock very, very briefly to Kempton for the Uni Bet September Stakes, where Enable is the 1-5 favourite ahead of Logician at 4-1. Alan Yak is 6-1. Prince of Arran for Charlie Fellows 8-1. Fox Towel 12-1. Tinan Darley 20-1. 25-1 Kirsten Bosch and Armenia, and punting 66-1. Not sure this is a race I'll be punting on, Andy, myself, but we should talk about Enable. There seems to be kind of the narrative around Enable seems to be at the moment that she's not quite what she once was, but comes into this a very short price favourite. Can we find anything to take her on with, or is it a case of just watching this prep run for bigger things coming up fairly soon?
I mean, I'm not absolutely a buyer into that theory either, that she's not as good as what she was. I mean, I think she got beat last year in the Arc by track position more than anything else. I think if Frankie had a chance to ride that race again, he might have stayed in his lane in the middle. And unfortunately, because he had his whip in his left hand, she drifted over towards the far side, and Walt Guys came and picked her pocket late on. But a season up to that was first class. Beating Crystal Ocean in an epic King George. Of course, she's already proven herself again in the same race, winning it for the third time this year, beating a good Irish Derby win in the shape of Sovereign. And a run behind Gaiath, as it's turned out, looks even better now than it did perhaps back in June. Gaiath, obviously, great win with the Judmonds, virtually unbeatable, 11 mile and a quarter. John Gosden didn't have 100% that day, which he told us about beforehand and afterwards. She took a good blow that day. She's very much had the Arc de Triomphe as her main target all season long. I know he trained her for the King George, but this is very much the prep. He's used this race before. When she beat Crystal Ocean, of course, on the way to victory a couple of years ago. So everything looks rosy and gone as far as I can see. She thrives. She loves her racing. She's very much a professional. And as it stands at the moment, I'd sooner back her perhaps than I would love, because she's already been there and proven herself at Longchamp time and time again, and in all these big Group 1s, whereas Love obviously hasn't had a chance to sort of run against the Colts and the older gelding so far throughout her career. So I think this will just be an exercise in Frankie just blowing away the cobwebs and just all using this as the best possible prep as they can. It'll almost like be a piece of homework for her, I'd imagine.
Well, let's quickly touch on the ARC market then, because this is, of course, is just one part of the plan for Enable's bid to reclaim her crown in Paris, and Love is the 2-1 favourite as it stands at the moment for the Arc, with Enable 3-1 best price. That is with Unibet. Gaiath currently 10-1, but of course, when it comes down to talking about the other horses, we're not entirely sure who's going to be aimed at the race, but that is not the case with the top two. And at 3-1, I mean, would you, in what you're saying, would you rather have, if you were drawing up the book for the Arc at the moment, would you have Enable as the favourite? Would you flip those two around?
I would, yeah, because there's not doubts about love as such, but there were a little one or two murmurings, let's say, that the ground at York might not necessarily be in her favour. As it turned out, it wasn't as bad. I think they had quite a drying wind the day that she ran, and it was just on the easy side of good. But let's say if it was soft or heavy in places, we get a really autumnal Paris, which we can get, as we've seen around here. It can come down in biblical quantities, can't it? And within the space of a few days. So let's say it was on the soft side. That would definitely put a little bit of a risk into Love's prospects. She's very much a fast ground filly. She's by Galileo. She floats across the surface. So a slog in the mud over 1.5 miles, let's say, if it was that, wouldn't necessarily be ideal for her. Whereas Enable, she's proven herself on all terrain. She can handle good to firm. She can handle soft, heavy. She liked a battle as well. We've seen her roll her sleeves up. So I think if you're looking at an anti-post bet now, if you're back to Enable, you're pretty much sure of what she's got all bases covered. Whereas if you're thinking about backing Love now at that price, you'd be a little bit more nervous about in the build up to the contest. You might as well wait to the day if you're going to back Love. I would suggest at 7-4 rather than take 2-1 now. There doesn't seem any mileage in her price at all. Whereas Enable, she just hasn't got any questions to answer.
Andy, that's why we love you. I've asked you to join me on Skype to preview the Sprint Cup, and we've ended up giving an art preview. Absolutely superb stuff. We'll move on now to back to Haydock on Saturday. We're going to be talking about the Superior Mile, the Betfair Superior Mile, the Group 3. And my Oberon heads up the market. Just Paddy Power out with prices at the moment at 11:30 on Thursday morning. My Oberon is 2-1. Calusi 11-4. Top Rank and Stormy Antarctic both 6-1. Dark Vision 9-1. Kinroth and Caser both 10-1, and Grange is 33-1. And the 8 run at the moment, market just about reforming. This is probably the first time you've seen it at the prices. Anything catching your eye?
Yeah, I think these two that the bookmakers have priced at favourite are very much the two to concentrate on. The two upperly mobile 3-year-olds, both coming here off the back of defeats last time, but good defeats at Goodwood through various circumstances. The ground was probably a little bit on the quick side for Calusi. Didn't handle the track behind Tilsat, but it was still a very good run. Travelled through the race really well. And if you go back to its Ascot win on soft ground, which the ground, of course, is likely to beat Haydock over the weekend, then you'll find that this horse beat a very good field in the Britannia handicap. It is a handicap but only in all but name. The horses it beat have subsequently gone on to Frank the Fawn. The time figure is exceptionally good. And back on that surface, Calusi is very much, I think, the one to beat. Albeit, I've got a bit of time for my Oberon. I actually tipped up my Oberon at Goodwood. It was a bit of an audacious tip because obviously got to beat Tilsit and Calusi. And as it turned out, he came out with a great amount of credit. He almost got knocked through the rail, if you remember. I think Ryan Moore couldn't do anything about it on the winner. Tilsit just drifted in and smashed into William Haggis's charge. Connections of my Oberon were a little bit nonplussed that they perhaps didn't get the result in the steward's room. I thought Tilsit was the best horse on the day myself. But it just shows you what progress my Oberon has made in a very short space of time. Got well beat first time out. A devastating victory on the Naysmore at York in a very quick time. Certainly suggested he was group class. Proved it last time in that Group 3. It's an interesting matchup between the two. They both now clash again on ground that will probably, I would say, more favour Calusi than it might be my Oberon. But they're two very exciting horses, and one's going to be 2-1, the other one's going to be 5-2. You're splitting hairs really. I'm looking forward to the race to watch, perhaps not to betting, because like I say, I don't think there's a massive amount of juice between them, and under these conditions, they're going to be very difficult to split.
With 8 runners as it stands, can we make a case for any others at bigger prices?
Certainly think you can with Kinroth. He's been a little bit disappointing so far this season, has to be said. Big things were expected of him, of course, last year after he won his maiden. And albeit he's been in very choppy waters, i.e., the Guineas and the race that Pinatubo won, of course, the French equivalent. He's still probably not got where connections might have hoped he might have taken them. But this is the first time he's going to have genuine juice in the ground. It was good to firm at Newmarket, good in France. He's going to get soft ground over the weekend. And the only time he's ever had soft ground in his like on the turf, he absolutely battered his field at Newmarket and clocked a worldy time. So I wouldn't necessarily write him off completely. And of course, Rafe Beckett's also in fantastic form at the moment as well. So with the Dede going out to post, I'd sooner look towards him of the each-way alternatives being the other 3-year-old that he's likely to improve now he's going to have his conditions at this time of year.
So Kinroth there, maybe a speculative one at 10-1, probably with the forecast worth waiting to the day to have a bet each way, because you don't want to have a bet now and then one comes out and suddenly you're backing with only an each way bet with only 2 places. Finally, we're going to talk about the Betfair Exchange Old Borough Cup, the handicap run over a mile and 6 furlong. 17 are still in as it stands, and in what looks a pretty open field. Glen Cadham Glory, nearly the Ebor hero. Daryl Carter tipped up Glen Cadham Glory in this podcast, and I think 50-1 at the time. Just touched off by the Varian horse that won that race for Jaria Prince. Rhythmic Intent is the 15-2 second favourite ahead of Cape Coast and Future Investment, both at 8-1. Dark Jedi 10-1. Australis 12-1. Regenski and Unit Glen the same price, 14-1 bar. A lot of interesting runners here, Andy. Who do you think is best set to attack this?
Well, the conditions are obviously going to be more favourable than others. Whether they'll suit Glen Cadham Glory, I wouldn't necessarily be sure. And he's got the steady of 9 stone 10 to contend with, and he had, of course, a hard race only 14 days ago in that aforementioned Ebor, which was a good tip by Dowell, in all fairness to him, at 50-1. The ground certainly won't be an inconvenience to Rhythmic Intent, and at this very early stage, 15-2 top price, he'd be the one I'd be looking towards. He's only blip on his dance card in the last few months came at Newmarket when he was sent off actually odds-on favourite in a handicap, but he got beat. Put down to 2 sets of circumstances, predominantly because of good to firm ground, secondly because the Stuart Williams team were bang out Nick, but subsequently in the last 14 days, Stuart Williams has had a little bit of a mini recovery. He's had a couple of winners, including this fella, and this fella got back on his soft ground the other day when he won at Newbury, beat Frontispiece quite readily. And if you go back to his run behind Trushan last season when the ground was on the easy side, that handicap, as I've referred to many times on the podcast, was a sensational one. So many subsequent winners out of that race that Trushan won. You know, your first in lines, Trader, Derivo, Dreamweaver, Country, Cape Cavallo, Sky Max, Natty Knight, Sinjari, of course, the John Smith's hero. These are all absolutely slaughtered by Trushan that day. So Rhythmic Intent came out of that race with great credit. He's now considerably higher. I think he's around about £12 higher than in the ratings, but he keeps improving. He likes plenty of dig in the ground, which he'll get. And I think the further he goes, the better it'll be. So I think the step up to mile 6 will definitely play into his strengths. So, yeah, I'm quite liking his chances at this very moment in time.
Rhythmic Intent 15-2. Any others at bigger prices we can look at down the list?
Cape Cross, he's got to be a consideration. He's not necessarily further down the list, but he won on soft ground last time out. I was quite impressed with him. And in Indianapolis as well, he's another one to mention when the ground's or the mud's flying. He ran really well at York last time out over 2 miles. He's run numerous good races at this time of year when there's been ease in the ground. He does like it here at Haydock. So I think he was 4th in the Old Newton Cup last year behind Kelly's Dino. So he's definitely one to consider. James Gibbs also in good form. So just a couple of others to mention. But yeah, very strong on that 4-year-old Rhythmic Intent. I think he represents the best form.
And given that we're coming to the end of this podcast, Andy, would you say Rhythmic Intent out of the races we've spoken about would be the bet you'd have at the prices at the moment?
He's one of the ones I'm definitely looking to put up. Like I say, Calusi, my eyebrow on that clash, I'm not so sure. I'll definitely put up something in the Sprint Cup. There's no doubt about that, unless something completely changes my mind. But yeah, I'll be amazed if I don't put Rhythmic Intent up come Saturday.
I'm afraid to say that brings us to the end of this podcast and video. We do not have time. The markets haven't reformed. The cards haven't fallen our way to talk about Friday's racing. But I can guarantee you that if you want to know Andy's thoughts on the card tomorrow, on all the cards tomorrow, just check the oddschecker app at about 9 o'clock tomorrow morning for Andy's write-up and all of his tips. It's the best app to have. It's the most important app to have for your betting over the weekend for the very best prices, the best bookie offers, free bets, and the best tipsters as well. So please do download the oddschecker app now and ensure that you keep reading Andy's stuff. Plenty more content coming up both on the oddschecker podcast and over on the YouTube channel. So please do subscribe there as well. Thank you very much to Andy. Hope you enjoy the racing, and please do gamble responsibly.